Louder? Okay, is this loud enough? Okay, so this, you can see a lot of sharks here. And so I have a big interest in shark sort of sociality. And especially when you go and you see large numbers of sharks, you can go to some of the locations here, we see large numbers of sharks. Does that mean they're being social? So when I talk about animals being social, I mean animals that like to spend time with other individuals associated with, for whatever reason. But just because you see a lot of animals together doesn't mean they're being social. They may just be there because there's a resource. Maybe there's food, maybe there's shelter. So they're not being there or close to each other because they want to be close to each other, but because there's something else they want there. So there's two things that interest me. Is first of all, identifying what the social structure of these animals is. Are they actually being social? And then trying to figure out why. What is the advantage of being social? Obviously not all shark species are. As I said, great hammerheads you almost always see being solitary. Scalloped hammerheads you almost certainly see traveling and in groups and are likely highly social. So how do we measure social structure? Well, the way we can do that is building what we call social network diagrams. And this is something that comes from social sciences originally. So we do the same thing with humans. So if I wanted to build a social network here, for example, I could ask each of you, do you know every other person in the room? And then how well do you know that person? And I can take all that data, I can put it into an algorithm, and it'll give me something that looks like this. So each of these circles represents an individual person. If you know somebody, you get a line going from one circle to another. We call these circles nodes. The lines connected them are called edges. And what this network does is, using the algorithm, it clumps together those individuals that have strong social associations. So here you can see, for example, clear what we would call social communities, the red group, the blue group, the yellow group. And we may expect the same thing here, right? If I did this for this room, some of you have very strong social associations, you've known each other for years, some of us only just met, so we would actually, even though we're all in the same room, we'd probably start to see clusters of social groups based on those associations. And then what you can also get from this is that there may be some individuals that are very important from a social standpoint. So let's say this blue individual here seems to have a lot of connections with both the blue but also the red community. So this could be really useful, for example, if we wanted to understand how information flows. So imagine I do a social network, everybody here knows everybody, everybody on this side knows everybody, but nobody's friends on both sides. So if I go to George, I tell him a secret, he goes and tells everybody on this side of the boat, that rumor spreads, but only along the left side of the boat. Nobody on the starboard knows it because there's no information flow. But now let's say George is also friends with somebody on this side, and then that information will spread throughout the whole boat. So this can tell us how information spreads. Now, you may be thinking, obviously sharks aren't spreading rumors, but there's other ways in that information can flow based on this social structure. So I'm just going to show you one of the ways we've used biologging to try to measure social structure in sharks. And obviously we can't do interviews when we're working with sharks, so we have to take a different approach. So rather than asking questions, we measure how much time they spend with each other. And we assume that that's related to your social bond. So if you have a very close friend or you're married, obviously you spend a lot of time with each other, you have a stronger social bond. Somebody you don't know that well, you may spend some time with them, but it'll be less, and that bond is weaker. But we have to be careful because you may, by random occurrence, spend time with people you don't know. So imagine you go to Starbucks every morning at 8 a.m. and there's somebody who's also in line, and you're always spending a short, maybe 10 minutes with that person, not because you know them, but you're both there because of that resource, Starbucks. So we have to filter out those random from the non-random associations. So how do we measure this in sharks? Well, one of the things we've been using is something called a business card tag. And you're probably all familiar with the acoustic transmitters that we have been using here to track the movements of animals. So imagine we have some sharks with acoustic transmitters here, which you have in red. But now our one shark is carrying a business card tag that is like one of the receivers that we've been putting down, but it's really small. So it's almost like it's carrying a receiver, so that every time it is associating with one of the shark with one of these tags, it's recording that, hey, I was hanging out with this tag shark. So we call it a business card tag because it's like, you know, I go around, if I meet you, you give me your business card, and I have a record of everybody's business card, and you can see who I've been hanging around with. So this is something that Mauricio and I worked on in Guadalupe with white sharks, and so we got this sort of custom built tag, which is a CATS tag. So it has the video camera, it measures depth, it measures acceleration, all that stuff. But now it also has this, this is a Sonotronics Mini SIR that can detect the transmission from the Vemco tags that we are putting on these sharks. So it's measuring the behavior of our shark, but it's also measuring who it's hanging around with. So this is again Fred Boyle. He does everything apparently because he works with everybody. But this is our friend Fred, the free diver in Guadalupe, as we get ready to deploy this on white sharks. So Guadalupe, everyone, I'm sure most of you have been there at some point. It's a well-known aggregation site for white sharks. There's a lot of white sharks there. And we have previous evidence that white sharks may have some social associations, because in Australia they noted that where you have cage diving, they were seeing the same white sharks turn up with each other. So each season the same shark seems to be turning up on the same day, suggesting some degree of social association. And actually, back 20 plus years ago, Peter Klimley, mentor for James and Mauricio, put forward this idea that white sharks might be social hunters, and I'll explain how that might be in a moment. So just to show you how we deploy these tags, here's Fred going down, clamps on the tag just like that. There you go, nice and easy. It never went that easy again, but that was the first time it was that easy. So that's how we do it. Those tags would stay on for several days. We'd have up to, I think, 5 or 6 day deployments, and they pop off. They go to the surface, and this just shows you from 4 of the sharks we tagged. So each of these is a different white shark. This is time of day, and these black detections show you when it was detecting another tagged white shark. And so what you can see straight away is that there's a big difference between these 4 individuals. So these 2 sharks, for example, they're only detecting other white sharks during the day, and that's when the cage diving is going on. So very likely these sharks were just detecting other tagged sharks as they were being baited in during the day, and these are probably just random associations. They're not hanging out with each other because they want to hang out with each other, but because there's bait there and they're going to the bait. But these 2 individuals were hanging out with other sharks day and night. Really quite extensive, lots and lots of encounters with other sharks. And so we can take this, and this is for one of those sharks, and we published this paper a couple years ago. And this is our social network for one of the white sharks. So each of these nodes represents a different white shark. This one here is the shark that's actually carrying the tag. The blue circles are male sharks. The red circles are female sharks. Does anybody see any patterns here in terms of who likes to hang out with whom? What would you say the pattern is?
Yeah, but sexual segregation. There is the green one, or is linked with?
Yeah, so the green one was a female that we tagged. So she's the one carrying the tag.
All right.
The thicker of the line.
The more often they're encountered together, or the longer.
And the separation. The longest.
So the way that this is that has clumped it together, this means that you are getting mostly females associating with each other, and you can see the blue is clumped on together. So
The focal was a female or a male?
I think it was female, but I can't remember. I'd have to check. I think it was female. I don't remember. But this, and there's already some evidence of this, that not only do white sharks like to form social groups, but it may be what we call assorted by sex. So females like to hang out with other females, and males like to hang out with other males. And so this starts to reveal what the social structure is of these sharks. Now this is only over a few days, so take that into account. We're just talking over short periods of time. But then we can do other things as well. We can see when do these encounters take place. So for example, here you can see our sharks carrying the tags. How many other sharks did they detect, and what was the depth when they were detecting them? And so what you can see is that they're really only encountering other sharks when they are shallower than 100 meters. When they're diving really deep, for the most time, they're not detecting any other sharks. So perhaps those associations are taking place shallower than 100 meters and less so than when they're going deeper. We can also do things like seeing what the behavior of our shark was. Was it swimming in a straight line when it was encountering other sharks? Was it swimming in circles when it was encountering other sharks? I won't go into that in too much detail. And so we have evidence of these short-term associations. And again, a lot of these associations were very short, but then you had some associations that would last hours. So for example, we had 2 white sharks at night that were swimming around for 2 hours detecting each other. And so this kind of ties in with the idea that, Pete Klimley had 20 years ago, that these sharks may form these short-term social associations. But then the next question is, well, why? What is the advantage of a white shark associating with another one? And one of my ideas, and this comes from, again, this is not Guadalupe, this is Facarava. So this is some footage I shot at night. Oh, let me play this. So there's no bait here. This is just, we're on rebreathers, so no bubbles, but this is all natural hunting. And so these are all gray reef sharks. And what I want you to see is that in a moment you're going to see, it looks chaotic, but you're going to see everybody start shooting off into one direction. They're going to go off to the left. I'm going to look down, and then when I look back up, you'll see suddenly everybody's going to look down, I look back up, and everybody starts shooting towards the right. And what happened here is that one shark went after a reef fish, another shark saw that reef fish, went for it, another shark saw the shark that saw the reef fish, another shark saw the shark that saw the shark, and so forth. So this is what I mean by information spreading through this group. In this case, the information is, where is prey? So this doesn't require any cooperation. I'm not saying these sharks are working together, but it could be advantageous to be hunting in a group simply because I'm more likely to find prey, because if you see it, then I'm more likely to see you going for the prey, and vice versa. And so over time, that may be advantageous. And this may be even more relevant for white sharks, because obviously they're in much smaller groups. They don't have population sizes like that, but they're hunting much larger prey, like seals, sea lions. And that means that there may be leftovers or actually additional parts of the meal for another white shark to eat, what we call kleptoparasitism. That's when you go and steal somebody else's meal. So the idea is that these white sharks like to hang around each other because they're perhaps trying to eavesdrop and see if another shark gets a meal and can then go and take advantage of it. So for example, here's from our camera tag from the cats. So this is a white shark swimming along. There's the bottom of Guadalupe. It's about 60 meters deep. And you're going to see our white shark sees another white shark. It's going to turn towards it. There it is. And it's going to start following it. And so we would see this quite often where one white shark sees another one, and you can see it turning, orienting towards it, and it starts to follow that other individual and perhaps see if it's going to go and find some prey. So there you go, just following that. And we'd see in one case we had it for 20 minutes where one white shark and another one were like following each other around. So perhaps some evidence that this is true. You go to the next one. It's gone black. Oh, sorry, the video's large, so it's let's try this. Playing. Okay, so here you can see our white shark now is in shallow water. Everyone, says they only hunt deep, but look, this is shallow. It's patrolling along, and it comes across I think it's a sea lion. Should come into focus soon. Oh, there it is. So now our white shark is interested, turns towards it. Sea lion doesn't care. Our shark's still interested, turns towards it, tries to get up around it. Sea lion still doesn't care. And eventually our shark gives up. And so we see this quite a lot with these white sharks. If they lose the element of surprise, they give up pretty quickly because they think their chance of success is really low. This is a very agile animal. And with this clear water, I think if they don't have the element of surprise, they're not going to succeed. And our shark gives up after trying to go around in circles. Now you can see another white shark. This is up closer to the surface in deeper water. And you're going to see it's going to start going up behind a turtle. Again, it may not be in a full hunting state. Maybe this is more investigation. There's our turtle. It has no idea there's a 4 meter white shark coming up behind it. So our turtle's swimming along, oblivious. not checking behind it as you should. But in a moment, it's going to look behind it, suddenly sees what the hell is coming up behind it, and then it'll take an evasive maneuver, there, sees it, and it turns the shell towards like that. So we see again, white shark then gives up and moves on. So although we had potential encounters with prey, we never saw a successful predation attempt. And then the final evidence I would say is, and this is some footage Mauricio got, this is not from a cat's tag, this is just video where they saw a sea lion carcass, I think, bobbed up to the surface. So this still has blood coming out of it. So it's a very recent kill, and there's already 2 white sharks around there. So this just happened, probably not enough time for the odors to spread, but you already have 2 sharks on scene, which again, if they're sort of hanging around in proximity to each other, we'd expect for them to be able to respond very rapidly to the presence of a prey item. So, I'll end there with this sort of, again, just, you know, I could give you a talk all day about shark sociality, but I'll just say for now that yes, some are social. We only recently have come with the abilities to detect this sociality. And the main, it's not just been the biologging that has been one approach. The big advances have actually been analytical ones and the mathematical tools we can use to identify these social groups. We're starting to see that now. And the big question remaining now is not so much are they social, but it's why. Why are they social? Because that's not as obvious as you may think. When you look at marine mammals, it makes sense why they're social. You can see mothers taking care of their calves, they can hunt cooperatively, things like that. With these shark groups, it's like, well, why are they social? They don't show parental care, so it may be due to defense, sometimes it's due to mating, and I think a lot of the time it'll be due to foraging, but we're trying to identify what those factors may be. And I think that is, yeah, that's all I have. So these are just some of the funders that have supported all this work, and I'll take some questions.